Welcome to ScreenBinge.com. Today we have a really special guest, Terence Gordon. He's a film and TV director and producer, and I'm Adrienne Mazzone. Welcome, Terence.
Hey, thank you. Thank you very much, Adrienne, for having me here.
Absolutely.
This is exciting.
Yeah, it is. It's a great community dedicated to movie and TV lovers. So you're in the right place. So
I'm in the right place.
Let's let the audience get to know Terence. Terence, can you tell us a little bit about what made you get into directing?
What made me get into directing? Wow. Well, I started around 1999, so sort of a latecomer to the game. I would say, most people, their story is, my dad bought me a high-8 camera and I was making movies in the backyard with my brothers and sisters, but that wasn't my narrative. I sort of introduced myself, I guess, to film at a young age, but I didn't really realize it. From movies like Kramer versus Kramer and as a kid. And what I do remember from movies like that was just that I connected to it on an emotional level and not realizing what that was. I just knew that here was a movie that I saw and it was kind of different from a lot of the other movies. There was some old movies like Cornbread, Earl and Me with Lawrence Fishburne that probably nobody's ever seen, but it had these really cool scenes. I remember this one scene about, these guys were making a bet and running across this lot, to see if he can get to his apartment building from buying this soda pop, and they were on the lookout for someone that had just stolen something, and the cops matched his identity to this kid that was running across, and he got shot. And I just remember how the scene was shot and how he fell to the ground. It was slow motion, and so although I didn't realize what I was seeing before me in terms of how I was connecting to a lot of the material, I just knew that I was connecting with material. And as I got older and, went down the route of, my first college degrees were in engineering and working in corporate America. And my bosses said, you don't really want to be here. You kind of want to be making films, because at that time we were doing pocket PCs. I don't know if you remember that. And
yeah,
Bill Gates. Yeah, well, Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer had brought their pocket PCs, because Microsoft had the operating system on those, to Morgan Stanley, and our integration engineer group was doing the engineering and integrating it into the business. And we had to deliver a CD because Bill Gates was at Morgan Stanley and Steve Ballmer giving a presentation. And I made this whole Mission Impossible little video to have the CD delivered to the fourth floor auditorium for this presentation. And I had the guards, I had, some of the employees, and we were doing this whole Mission Impossible thing just to deliver a CD. So my boss would say, that's where you need to be. So they said, you know what, we'll let you go to school. So I took the train from Midtown and go up to downtown Manhattan to NYU. I got into the directing program there, and I'll just go back and forth as long as I was able to complete my work. And my wife at the time said, if you're gonna do it, just go to the best school, and that's kind of what I did, and the rest is history. So
that's a great story. Wow, you really have some interesting background there. What school did you wind up going to?
So I went to NYU for the film stuff. Yeah, well, my college degrees before was in the CUNY BA program. So I was literally going between Hunter College, Brooklyn College, City College, and Medgar Evers College. But my degree came from the Graduate Center, and that was for my computer engineering stuff. But when I went to film school, I went to NYU. They had a directing program. It was actually like a master's in film and something, but they did this whole certificate course that was 2 years from the master's program in directing specifically. And that's what I did. I just did the straight directing section of it for 2 years. Had some really good
quite a bit.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's an interesting background. I'm a New Yorker, so I passed NYU many times. So why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the projects you've been working on and directing or producing, what you're actually doing with the projects?
Okay. Well, as of late, I've been some of the documentaries I've been working on, and a few of them, matter of fact, just got back just minutes ago from Maryland, shooting a documentary that's a docuseries, not titled yet, with Billy Hunter. Billy Hunter, just a wonderful guy. He was in the Versace documentary that you guys have been part of, and Transmedia has been instrumental in helping to promote for us, and also being part of it, which
What's in a name, right? With Alfredo Versace.
What's in a name with Alfredo Versace, which is an incredible story about Mr. Versace and his life and building a legacy, and then just to have his name taken away from him because of trademarks and competing, and maybe him not keeping things the way in terms of accurate records in a certain way that that maybe the law expected, and fighting against that tide has resulted in him losing $250 million of revenue a year and losing the rights to his own name. But the man still stands. He's still creative, and we want to tell a story that's in his own words, and that's that's the documentary that that we worked on. I did the legendary Marion Williams documentary also, which is the life of this very, very acclaimed gospel singer.
Talented, very talented, beautiful and talented. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, people like Aretha Franklin and Dionne Warwick and all these people have looked up to her, and just very big legends in the business. And and she had the opportunity to go into a more secular world and do music, but she stuck where she did, and she was inducted into the Kennedy Hall of Fame. I think she was the first African American person to be inducted into that by the Clintons at the time, and along with Johnny Carson and other people. And then on top of that, I've done a few other feature films. For Michelle, which was an independent feature film. That's on Amazon Prime. Hermaphrodita, a foreign film I produced on.
So it seems like you really dive into backgrounds, right? It seems like you like documentaries, or is there other genres that you get into? What really draws you to those stories?
So my two favorite genres will be espionage films. I do love those. And I certainly do like documentary films. I do like real life stories, and like the stuff that I'm doing right now with Billy Hunter, and because he was the attorney that worked on the Patty Hearst. It was left to him as a decision as to whether Patty Hearst from back in the 70s, was going to be a free woman or not. The Hells Angels big cases. He worked on cases of that, and then being an athlete himself, and then going into the NBA, and he was the president of the National Basketball Players Association, and happens to be the person that's responsible for the collective bargaining agreements that the NBA players have today. The reason why they make the kind of money that they have, the reason why the television networks have created $3 billion deals that these NBA players are now able to partake and make the kind of millions that they make today, is because of Billy Hunter's input into building the collective bargain agreements. But he was outed, and sort of optics are a certain thing, and certain individuals, owners of teams and so forth, sort of worked against him, because he was one for the players, and he made sure that they got what he felt that they deserved, and so eventually he was let go, and we're getting to tell his side of the story.
Yeah.
So there's stories.
There's a lot of names that we can all look up and research and get to know.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I do like the genre of espionage, because in my life also, when I came to the United States and went to college, I also went into the military, and I did 8 years in the military, and 2 of those years was in military intelligence, and I love the world of intelligence. Just
very intriguing.
Very intriguing.
Yeah.
And so my 2 years in military intelligence, which was my last 2, so I did 6 in Signal Corps, and then 2 years in military intelligence. before, right when they were about to send me overseas on an assignment. But I'm a British as well as an American citizen, had dual citizenship. And I did not want to give up my British citizenship. And if I took the assignment where they send you as detachments opposed to as a battalion on assignment overseas, I would have had to give up that. And I said, I did my 8 years in the military, served this country, I think, to best as I can. And so I opted out at that point. But I always loved the world of intelligence and just what makes it up, and just, just the level of there's such a narrative to it. You become something else and someone else, and you're integrated, and so
I have a good question for you then. In that world, if you were going to have an opportunity to remake a film or tracks a story or a person that you really would want to dive into, who would that be, or what would that be?
There's so many good spy movies. Spielberg has done some. I can't really say I would want to remake one, but I do have one that I would like to make of my own. And I have two very specific actors that I've never seen together that I would love to see in an espionage world. And that is
okay. Who, you got my ears perked. Who is that?
Okay. So Vera Farmiga and Maggie Gyllenhaal, which I think are two very incredible actors in the independent world as well as the studio level world, that they have sort of a depth to them in their storytelling, no matter what they're in. And I always felt that if I did an espionage movie, that I would put two of them up against each other in a very strong narrative. And that's sort of like my dream project, which I haven't started writing yet.
Oh, well, now we have to tag them when we post the interview.
Yeah,
Terence,
tell them that there's a filmmaker that's got this.
Yeah,
this
we will. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's how you reach people sometimes. And you have such a sterling background. If you were to give some advice to somebody who's breaking into production that might want to start producing or directing, is there any kind of tips that you've learned that you would want to pass along?
I would say, be very, read a lot about things that are outside of film, read about different subject matters, get involved on educating yourself on all sorts of things that you may think would just be completely irrelevant to what you're doing, because it gives you context around anything that you're building. And, for instance, like one of my latest projects I'm working on right now is 7 Doors In, on a book that was written by Bess Rondo Deacon, about a school teacher behind prison walls that went in there and had the highest graduating class. She got opposing gang leaders to work together and gave them an education and a sense of purpose. And that many of these men that were mass murderers and did all kinds of crazy things, said to me in person that, had they had someone like that in their lives, they probably would not have led down the road that led them behind these bars, because they would have found value in themselves. And I think people always want to find value. Yeah. And I feel that, when we educate ourselves on different things, we learn about stuff that you may not even realize that you might have an interest in. And with that, I think it gives us a sense of value. I think filmmakers that are getting into the business, film school is wonderful, but I could tell you, not until you set foot onto a set yourself and you have to helm that is where your real education starts. School would tell you, well, don't cross the line, or don't cross the axis, or, this is this lens and that lens, and things of that nature, some very technical things. Yeah. But I feel that being very observant to behavior around you, very observant to your own behavior, in specifically, what makes you tick, what makes you excited, what makes you angry, embrace those things, those qualities, bring that into your filmmaking. And
great advice.
I think that would be it.
Wow, maybe you should open up a school. You should be doing seminars. You seem to have a lot of insight to share, which is really incredible, and happy to do it, which is thank you for doing that. So I just wanted to I wanted to ask you maybe one or two more questions.
Shoot.
So, but when you're out filming, you don't mind traveling. Tell me what the life is when you're about to embark on a production, like all the prep involved. It must be really intense, and you have to really get down to, it's a lot of work. Tell us just maybe where you just came from, what your film day was like.
This week I was in Maryland, like I said, shooting with the Billy Hunter project with the co-director, Thomas Freeman, and producer Nate Banks. They've done some great documentary work and some
good
TV
guys,
stuff.
very good guys.
Very good guys, yeah. And they're always in the hustle in terms of making stuff, and I love the attitude of they pick up and go, and and I'd love to maybe even shout out my buddy, Devon Smith from Deuce Benny Productions, who's been shooting with me for, 15 years. And we have created a lot of work together. Just about every project I've done, he's been involved with as well. And, we sort of learn and keep going. And just to debunk a misconception that people think that, there's such a glamorous life, and maybe it is on certain levels for others. But, for independent filmmakers, we're in the trenches. I
behind the scenes is rough sometimes.
Getting on a flight, with your camera cases and your bags and bringing all that stuff, and, and
dedicated
up, doing
position,
15-hour days,
mm-hmm.
Doing the stuff with Seven Doors In, with writers and, working with those, managing personalities, helping each person to be able to bring out their strengths in writing or what have you. It's a lot of work, 15 to 17-hour days, that's normal.
But we get to really watch it, and we know what goes on in behind the scenes now after hearing it from you. So it's even more appreciative, right? So I wanted to thank you so much for coming on ScreenBinge.com. Terence Gordon, amazing producer, director. How do we find you and find out more information about you?
Certainly. Well, my email is terence.gordon@icloud.com. And that's Terence with one R, because everyone spells my name wrong. One R.
Terence Gordon.
IMDb, in the Internet Movie Database. If you put my name in there, you can typically see what I'm working on. So that
excellent.
That would be a place. And Instagram is TNGDIR. So just
definitely. We'll tag you, and we're going to tag the other two people you mentioned in the video as well. So thank you again for joining ScreenBinge.com, Terence. And thank you so much for all you do. We look forward to seeing your films and your projects. Stay in touch with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely.